Right, we are recording, so welcome, Ihor.
Thank you, Gary, and good to see you. Good to see you again.
Yeah,
Last time we spoke, Gary, it was November 2017. It was first time and the last time so far,
really, was that long ago?
and it was November 2017. So it's almost a year and a half ago. Can you believe it?
Wow. Yeah, I was in San Francisco, I think, for that interview. I was at my friend
I
Robbie and Eden's house. I've moved twice.
and I wasn't right, right, right.
Actually, I don't think
You
I.
moved twice.
Yeah, I don't think I even had a house at that time. I think I was like living in the car. I was doing the semi-homeless thing.
Right, 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 right. Wow. You will laugh because since then, I have moved twice as well.
Yeah.
And when we spoke then, I was at the very beginning of the story, in the middle of which, or at the end of which, I am right now. And it is and Spain now. I was in Siberia at the time when we
Hmm.
spoke. So I've changed homes twice, so to speak, and moved twiise.
And
And
are you in a better location now? Are you in your favorite out of the three?
actually, the thing is, I don't mind being here, but what is the choice? I think ultimately I've chosen to be here, as we know, Gary.
Uh-huh. Choices.
But I don't actually, it's not like a fully like holistic choice
Hmm.
because of the factors which uh, which which are supposedly external, yeah,
Hmm.
or maybe they are, and maybe not. So it's basically, I think I wrote to you that just very, very briefly to give you a context. Essentially, I blew a whistle in Russia, where I lived, for those who may be listening, where I lived and worked. And I blew a whistle, not like too much of a whistle, but a whistle. And and it disturbed some people.
Uh-huh.
It's on a corporate and state level.
Hmm.
Uh, it was very sort of hushed, and but I was threatened,
Hmm.
and I had to leave the country. I really did. So I took a bus to Belarus and then a bus to Poland, and I went to Holland because there was a reason for it. Yeah,
So you had to
and
leave
so I spent.
Siberia. You had to leave Siberia.
No, I left Moscow. I lived in Moscow
Moscow.
mostly at that
Okay.
time, but yeah, yeah, that's right. So and so I spent 8 months in Holland because I spoke to the authorities in Holland, and their best recommendation was to apply for asylum. I
Hmm.
spoke to the police basically,
Yeah.
and they basically said that the best idea is to apply for asylum, and I applied for asylum, and my application was considered there for 8 months,
Mm.
and I stayed there. And but because I had a Spanish visa, uh, due to European Union regulations, I had to go to Spain and apply for asylum here. So I'm in the middle of this procedure, and I don't think I want to complete it. I think us answering your question about Spain, uh, I don't think I will be staying here, and I think I will. I may go to South Africa,
Yeah.
believe it or not,
Okay.
yeah, for a while, and so that's my context, Gary.
Huh. Do you wish to share at all about the small whistle that you blew, or you don't want to talk about that?
The whistle I blew, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear
Yeah.
fully. I actually don't want to talk about it for safety reasons.
Okay.
Also, my mother is in Russia, so I better not say anything about it. But in general terms, I can tell you if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
In general terms, it was basically a fraud,
Mm-hmm.
which I discovered, and that fraud affected me.
It affected you directly and
I,
personally?
pardon?
Directly and personally, it affected you?
Directly and personally. It was basically money,
Mm-hmm.
uh, money not paid, and it was a few thousand euros, basically for the work I did.
Mm.
And but it was part of fraud, and which I discovered, and I reported. I had an advice from a lawyer who dealt with that legal entity on other occasions,
Mm-hmm.
and he basically advised to blow the whistle the way I
Mm.
did, and uh, and also there was a political dimension there, and which I will not go into, because in Russia the state and commerce are very much intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
It's an oligarchical country,
Does Russia have
and
is Russia religious at all?
pardon?
Do they have religion there? Is that intertwined as well?
Yes, very much as well. But they're trying to impose themselves, but they're being ridiculed left, right, and center for that because they're so corrupt and, and quite frankly useless. And they're a joke. And in reality, if you ask a Russian, yeah, on the street, about 80% of Russians would probably answer they're Orthodox Christian.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, if you take the statistics of church-going folk, uh, which are real Christians, then it's 3 or 4% of the population only. So it's
3 or 4%?
in reality, it's a minority. Pardon?
You said 3 or 4%?
3 or 4, maybe maximum 5, for what I know statistically.
Uh-huh.
It's statistics. So the religion is trying to intertwine, impose itself too. But Islam is probably stronger in Russia from this
Really?
point of view.
That's interesting.
Yeah, not in numbers, but in the ratio of traditionally Muslim population. More of them, not 3 or 4 or 5, but probably more of them go to mosque every Friday. Is it? Yeah, Friday.
Mm.
Is it Friday? Friday. Yeah. And then nominally Russian Christians. So what we were, I was talking about the political dimension to the situation, and so there was this political dimension there as well, which is not fully clear to me until now, but it was some serious stuff. That's why I left. And it's all water under the bridge now, really, because it's all solved.
Yeah.
Because I do not intend to go into conflict with them because it's just too much. It's a big monster, Gary.
Yeah, I know, I know. I think
And
I think unless you're heavily invested, like deeply intertwined in these sort of webs, then there's not enough benefit from sort of staying on that path? Because I mean, if you're gonna have to go hide your entire life, is that worth it? You know?
No, no, and they can find you anyway.
Right.
They can find you. Yeah, and it's much easier to just it just makes more sense to drop it, and there is no justice there in that realm. And there is another thing, it's maybe somebody listening to this will find it relevant as well. Hopefully it's not just about me.
It's all about everybody.
But yeah, that's true as well.
Every conversation is see, like we have conversations and bits and pieces are touched on, but like the human drama is shared by everyone. If you're a human, you're part of all of it, not just a part of it. Not You're not just an American. You're part of the crap in Russia and China and South Africa and literally. And then if there's extra dimensional or interdimensional forces interweaving their stuff as well, we're a part of that as well.
I agree. I was thinking exactly this way today, and this old song from Michael Jackson came up in my mind. We are the world, we are the children. Yeah, but it's like if you do it in I am the world, and I'm the children. Yeah. But I've lost the train of thought.
You were talking about how it wasn't really worth it to sort of fight that battle.
Yeah, it's not more. Yeah, totally. It's I can I can see how your life, my life. I mean, my life could have, if I didn't drop it completely and just dropped it, water under the bridge, then the effort. Essentially, there is on the personal level, the immediate client I dealt with, he was actually a psychopath. And I learned, and that was the second time in my life where I dealt with a psychopath, and it was about money, and it was about justice, and it was about psychopathy. And so to win an argument, no, not to win an argument, but to find an agreeable, coherent peace with the psychopath.
That's a difficult proposition.
Who is your client as well, and has political connections and business connections. You just drop it, Gary. You just drop it. It's not worth it. So that's about it.
It's the same thing with the people that talk about the narcissists, like the narcissistic personality, that where they, in order to play sort of with the rest of the populace, they have to act as if they care and empathize, but they don't actually have this feeling inside. So it's going to be a 100% war and only war and nothing but war in every conversation and every interaction. Like, I have experience with this as well. I know what it is. And there's no winning. There's no winning a war. You can't win.
No need for war. But it actually got so ridiculous, funny at times, because he actually accused me of slander, damage to the company's reputation, and causing suffering to a lot of people.
Yeah.
it's immorality, lack of consciousness, conscience. You name it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like you know as well as I do, like the conceptual language is lacking, right? Like it doesn't quite fit what we're trying to do and say, how we're trying to communicate. And
Mhm.
if somebody does not have that piece inside of them, that the part of them that just can do this and be like, all right, it's fine, let's restart the conversation, and let's work together. If they don't have that part inside of themselves, then it's just war. Like it's a conversational style war, and they will never like give an inch. And it does the same thing as what you're saying, like the sort of narcissistic or psychopathic personality. They can't look at themselves, so they project out onto you exactly what they are. So they'll accuse you of exactly what they're doing.
Absolutely. This whole interaction, Gary, was turning the situation 180%.
Yeah.
So whatever he was guilty of, he completely conveyed it. He tried to convey it upon me. And essentially, the thing is, it gave me a lot of food for thought, that whole situation, because it lasted like for almost 7 or 8 months while I was still in Russia. And he basically shamelessly, cynically created a different reality, a
Yeah.
psychopathic reality
Right.
in which it was all upside down or completely opposite. Yeah, and he had the the nerve or lack of any morality, any conscience, yeah, uh, any true spirit, any love, ultimately, yeah, any humanity, if we use this term, yeah, to turn it 180%. Yeah.
Yep.
And I was just like, and it was the second time in my life this kind of situation, but that was even more and bigger than before. Yeah, and this aspect of that person shamelessly creating a totally fake reality and acting like a Stanislavskian actor, the method actor. He lived it.
Yeah.
Probably without feeling nothing. He was like a receptacle,
Uh-huh.
who very convincingly, it seemed very, very convincingly played a role, in that reality. It was quite a spectacle.
Yeah.
It was quite a spectacle.
I think in those types of cases where you have like two conflicting entire worldviews, I think it's almost necessary for you know, and it's also difficult to say as an observer, like this one worldview is 100% correct and this one is 100% incorrect. It's usually something in between. But if someone has latched on to something that they kind of created in their own mind, they kind of believe it. I think they have to actually believe it themselves. And so like in the two perspectives, you have two people defending what they feel is truth, like what they feel is the actual truth, and then it's difficult to have a resolution to that, you know, because you know as well as I do, like
Yeah.
any position can be defended logically, and I mean any position,
Yeah.
right? So if someone internally feels like it's 180 degrees from the person they're arguing with, if they actually feel that or if they actually think that, then you're both going to be able to defend yourselves logically, because logic allows itself to wrap around any potential worldview.
True. And to a psychopath, it helps in this case to twist the facts, drop some facts, create lies, and pretend the lies are facts.
Yep.
And it's a bad fantasy. He basically created a fake reality in which he easily believed. Like almost like a child. He created, like, he totally believed the fake reality he created was real, and he totally believed it genuinely. Like,
Yeah. That's what makes it difficult.
Seemed.
That's what makes it difficult because, like, I think we have like a misconception. A lot of us, we have a misconception that truth of every matter is a thing that's kind of set. Like, there is something, like, if everybody in the room got together and talked about, the room, like, what does the room look like? What is it? How do you feel about it? We have this idea that, and I've talked about this many times, but we have the idea that in every interaction there is a very solid reality to what you're talking about. There's a very solid truth behind what both parties are trying to speak towards. And to me, it's coming out that it's difficult to say there is a truth as far as phenomenal reality, as far as, like, conceptual, linear, this event happened, that event happened, this thought happened, that emotion happened. In terms of that, it's hard to say there is an objective reality. In terms of what I consider to be truth, which is like stillness, that's at the center of the hurricane, right? That doesn't need to be defended conceptually because it doesn't involve conceptions. And conceptions can always lie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to what you're wheedling out of the people, even if you're in a court situation, is you're wheedling out of them, hopefully, what they feel is the most correct version of the story, and then whichever the majority agrees with becomes the truth. But you can't even say, even if a court decision has happened, nobody can say, we're all 100% certain that verdict is correct. It's impossible.
And which reminds me, like, you're talking about stillness, free from concepts, I personally find when there is no agenda, when there is no external motivation and a roadmap and an agenda, then there is a stillness. Right. And peace.
Yeah. That's what everybody wants, even if they don't know it. Everybody, because the things of the world are heavy and they're traumatic and it hurts and it's painful, confusing, and all this stuff. And if you don't have that place to drop back into at any moment, then you'll get stuck in the whirlwind. You'll be just doing this, faster and faster and banging up against everything else that's in there with you.
Yeah, and a lot of it obviously has to do with money and greed and lack and competition and a totally different concept of life, living and being.
Yeah. It's like the worldviews, the external worldviews are kind of having a free for all. And they do that in terms of the main players, which are government and religion, and maybe philosophical ideologies as well. Maybe that's the third one. But you have set forth in the religious texts sort of like rights. You have, like, in the Bible it says man has dominion over all the creatures of the earth, right? Now, if people believe the Bible, that immediately sets up a worldview which allows humankind to basically abuse animals, like to use and abuse and churn through the consumption machine, and humans get a free pass that believe in that text to not have to look with a clear-sighted personal morality at the situation. They don't have to. They're like excused from having to do that.
I'm talking about religions, Gary. I was going to ask, what's your perception of the Notre Dame situation event, if you want to share.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that event was probably similar in terms of emotional sort of like a punch to people's kidneys. This similar to the way 9/11 was to people who saw those pillars as like the symbol of like capitalism and material and monetary success.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of like a blow to the
Hmm.
psyche of people who put lots of stock in the main religions, because that's a symbolizing Catholicism, right, which has been one of the very top organized religious structures that exists. So I think it's double edged in terms of the actual impact it has on people, because those of us who don't subscribe to any particular religion, for me it doesn't mean anything. Like, okay, a building burned up, like, because I don't look at everything with symbolic eyes. I know that I can do that, but I don't do that. So to me, if I see a building burning up, it's the same as if I saw like a doghouse on the side of the street burning up. It would have the same impact on me. But since people have given their power into these structures, if a symbol of the structure is attacked like that, then they themselves are attacked by the same thing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you in terms of being at the same, in terms of Notre Dame being at the same scale as 9/11, because my inner, when I first saw it, my first inner sort of knowing was exactly that. This is the same scale as I even thought, I felt at that time, and it may sound blasphemous, but I actually felt it was more than 9/11,
Mm.
and I hear a lot of people say that,
Well,
and I started to think why, reflect.
yeah, I would say in terms of overt power structures, the church is probably more responsible for mentally entraining people than
Yeah, yeah,
even
right.
consumerism and capitalism, because those two things piggyback with, or they nest inside of the first religious worldview. It's not the other way around. It's first you have the religious worldview that sets people's morals to a certain extent, and then the economic models fit inside of that.
Yes. My inner knowing at that moment and now is basically this is the end of Christianity project, like officially,
Mm-hmm.
and possibly even Abrahamic religions projects as well. It seems to me that somebody is just closing, removing that layer to build up something new, say a one world religion, or you know,
It could be something like
and
that.
why to me this is quite let's use the word important, yeah, relevant. To me, it seems that we now that the Notre Dame is burned and this layer is being removed. Uh, and French are not very religious. For what I know, it's the church is not very relevant in France, and Christianity is not very relevant in France. But and uh, uh, that's probably why it's like a final summary. Now we will physically remove that symbol as well, or remorph it somehow,
Mm-hmm.
and bring in new. Because even on a physical level, they're going. Macron, the French president, he said that they are going to, when they will restore it, they will add certain more relevant modern elements to it. So it will be a different uh, church altogether, a different cathedral of a new, possibly of a new hijacked.
Yeah, I know there is the push. That push does exist. I see it. The New World Order push, the sort of unification of. To me, all that means is a unification of the mental governance of the population. It's not something. It's not something like really hard to wrap your mind around. It's instead of the. It's almost like the thing itself that controls the realm is basically telling us, instead of pretending that I'm all these different branches, which are called like state, church, uh, business, etc. Instead of pretending that, I'm just going to show myself as I actually am, and I'm just this one particular entity or thought form or control structure, and you know, it's essentially would be saying that it's not going to be playing so many camouflage or games like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. But now that this layer is removed, and it's like there is nothing there. Yeah. Uh, maybe it's like a bifurcation point where hopefully we could affect the reality easier when it's just like free. The site is free. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe we can do something about it.
I mean, we
you
we
know.
do anyway. We Every single creator being that's here, right? If you have an internal presence in the body and you're not some clone or copycat life form or something like that, you affect the reality. Period. Like you can't not affect the reality. It's like telling someone that's having a dream inside of their bed that the sort of like growling dog that they dreamed up is somehow more powerful than them as the actual dreamer of the situation. It's something like that. But there's like a fine line between people freaking out because they realize, oh, like this is actually me. Like this is all a sort of playground, or it's a place where I can experience and move and touch the reality. If people come out of that too fast, then they can have a panic attack, or they can fracture their mind, or and also people have lots of things have been built into the mental, the psyche of awake humans that puts like mines, like puts bombs along the path to kind of coming up out of the dream, because the powers that use the energy of us or that use it as loosh, they don't want us coming out because then their machine isn't powered anymore. So there are lots of like layers and levels of stop gaps that if you start waking up, then all of a sudden you're gonna run across a landmine and get set back, and there's just lots of stuff that you have to kind of wade through.
2 years ago, I felt when I traveled to Spain again. I traveled to, was it 2 or 3 years ago? When I traveled to Spain, partly by plane, partly by bus, this kind of thing. I felt an absolute must inside myself to go to Vatican, to just go there. I don't know why. It was not for sightseeing, and it was not. I trust I was not delusional that I was, and also to go to Notre Dame and just be there. I was in Paris only for one day, and almost 100% of my time there, except going to the station or airport and back, and to Notre Dame. I mean, it was a few hours, 6 or 7 hours, or something like this. I just stayed there. I was in the cafe, and then by the cafe, and just, I absolutely felt it was a must to be there. So I don't know, maybe people, visited Notre Dame,
Well,
like
yeah,
that, and just
They
get
said
their
it.
thoughts, so to
I think
speak,
they said
about it.
2,000 people per day visit that church, like tourists and otherwise, and that's a lot. Like
Yeah,
that's a lot of energy.
there was always a long queue, but it's yeah, yeah.
Which means
Yeah.
that which means that the reason you would attack that, I guess, or use it as a if it's a false flag of sorts or whatever it is, you would use that because it's in more people's psyche. Like if that symbol doesn't mean anything to somebody, then it burning up also doesn't mean anything to that person.
Doesn't mean anything. Oops. So sorry.
Your camera's flying all over the
I'm
place.
so sorry. Yeah, it's a phone because I have to use the phone and
Yeah.
it's flying all over the place. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
And yeah.
But like what I've found personally is that the symbologically charged power structures, when you after you've done the process and the cleaning out process of your own interior, if you have removed those things as powerful inside, then they're gone. Like that event to me doesn't mean anything aside from like a conversation point. And I think that can be with anybody if you don't wish an element of your life to have power over you and to control you, to make you fearful. If you don't actually wish it and you don't intend it, and you do your energetic work to remove that as a power player, then it's just gone. It doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm. Um, there was there was something else I wanted to mention to you, which kind of like relevant to me at the moment. Maybe you'll find it interesting as well, or maybe you have some opinion about that. I don't know if you've heard that there were presidential elections in Ukraine in last week
Yeah,
or this week. And a stand-up comedian is now a president of Ukraine.
I think you told me that, didn't you? I think you might have told me that.
No, no,
No,
maybe I did. Yeah, but I don't think so.
but
Which is kind of interesting because the Russians are very envious because he's actually seemingly a very, as much as it is humanly possible in these kind of realms, he's actually a very decent guy. And he's also an ethnic Jew and Ukrainian Jew. And all these years, ever since 2014, Russia has been accusing Ukraine of being a Nazi state. Yeah. And now the Putin regime will have a difficult time explaining to Russians how a Nazi nation has chosen a Jew as their president. So there is a complete panic in propaganda and political circles in Russia right now, and especially in the context of the fact that so-called Putin has basically, according to Russians and Russian perception and what Russians are saying, has turned into a clown for quite a while now. So it's like we have a situation where in Russia we have a president who turned a clown and the clown who turned a president in Ukraine, which is quite amusing, I find. So
and we have Trump. We have Trump here in America.
To me, and we have what?
And we have Trump in America playing the Joker role over here.
You see what I'm saying? It's a tendency, isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been for a while.
So yes, there's a side story that goes along with this. I don't know if you've heard of it, but there's a guy who claims to have contacted some deity, the frog thing, what's it called?
It was very, very, very Queen Michaels.
It wasn't Quinn. It was the guy's name is Spencer, I think Eskridge. Og had him on, and Og had him on like a couple weeks ago, and Spencer was talking about how he contacted this frog god or whatever, and it came in.
I listened to this video.
You listened to it, yeah.
I know what you
yeah. And it was just interesting because, I take everything with a grain of salt when someone's claiming to have done something, but if you look at the power players and how it does seem to have become like a reality TV show of sorts, and like sort of like there's lots of joke aspects in it, then it makes sense that some different thing has come in, and from the top down it's different now. I don't know if you can say it's better or worse, but it's clearly being shaken up.
Yeah, and the thing is, Gary, there is more to this story. 2 years ago, this Ukrainian president, at the time still a stand-up comedian and an actor, he made a film, obviously with a team, and it was a proper film, a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Servant of the People. Yeah.
Mm.
And in this film, he plays the main role, and the main role is President of Ukraine. 2 years ago, they made this film. He basically acted a president with whatever developments were in the script. So there was a script, there was a film, a reality presented to the nation.
Mm-hmm.
2 years later, he's no longer an actor playing a president. He's a president. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, I mean, I see it as a good thing, because the most poisonous thing that I see in the realm is like seriousness. If people take themselves too seriously, and their belief systems and their ideologies and their holy figures and all of this, then like that very seriousness is what causes war. It's what causes murder. It's what causes torture. It's the thing that you're holding on to, this like internal worldview that says I am superior or whatever, and that gives you as the being like free leave to just abuse other entities. And if you bring the joke, like the Joker card in, that just says, look, you guys are all full of shit. Like, all of your stuff is just, it's hilarious,
A joke completely smashes and ruins an agenda.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's why comedians are some of the most powerful voices that we have, right? Because they can talk about real topics, and they'll make fun of everybody equally. They're not going to just pick on one power player. They'll make fun of everyone, and they're actually getting something done at the same time.
And which brings me to the hilarious reality of neighboring Russia, because I don't know if you've heard about this, but a couple of weeks ago, Russian President Putin signed two laws. One, a law on fake news, and another one on slander and offensive. No, it basically bans offending state officials, including the president. And a hashtag in Russian has reached the tops, an international hashtag, whatever, I'm not sure how you call it. But basically 2 days ago, a court in one of the Russian counties sentenced a Russian, your regular person, he has a page on Facebook, and on his Facebook page, he basically made a post about Putin, calling him a fabulous dumb fuck, and he was sentenced to $437 fine to
Oh
pay.
wow.
And this whole story, and that was the first sentence so far since the law was passed and signed by Putin 2 weeks ago. And so there is a huge support for this guy around the country, but basically I find it hilarious that, talking about comedians, and they're banning sense of humor.
Right.
So it's
it's the war is on the things that are like, being present, laughter, joking, being lighthearted. The war, it has always been on those things because those things bring people's internal energy state up. And when someone's internal energy state's up, they can't be vampired, they can't be sucked out of, their energy can't be loosed, etc., etc. People are powerful when they're in that state. So the only war has ever been on keeping people energetically down. And the conceptual framework and narrative that flies around, it doesn't mean a lot outside of that main objective, which is to keep the consciousness state as low as possible. So basically, your best defense is just, to laugh and smile and crack jokes and fuck around. Like, that's the best way, like, it seems weird to say that, but that's actually it.
And to see the hilarity of that stupidity.
It is.
And then laugh.
It's becoming a Kardashian show, but not as... Well, I can't say Kardashians are interesting because I've never watched it, but it's something along those... It's like, I've said this before, but it's like if you take a schoolyard, like, spat, right, where these kids are pulling each other's hair and, like, pouring drinks on each other and stuff, and it's like, here you go, kids, we're gonna give you millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and you do the same little fight, but just do it, like, in front of everybody else, like the whole world.
Yeah, but the thing is, you don't have in the Senate and in the Congress that much in the US, but in Ukraine, that's exactly what was happening on a physical level all the time. It was like almost every day there was a fight and pulling each other's hair and boxing.
They were physically, yeah.
Almost every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gayatri, you've seen Gayatri, right? My friend in Singapore. I've had her on the show a couple times. She's Indian, this Indian girl, and she'll tell me stories about how the politics in India are, and for them, like throwing shoes at each other, like, getting in physical fist fights, all this, that's normal. Like, that's a normal day in politics in India. just brawling every single day. I think it's funny. I don't even have a TV, so I can't watch the drama, but I hear people talking about it.
Right.
But still, like, it's still, the way I try to get people to be able to see it is that the politics thing is still your projection state. So, like, if you value yourself as a human being, this projected politics scene, which it's never in your present moment, right? You have to go hop on a TV or something, or
It's not.
You got to walk yourself over to Congress. You have to, like, literally physically pull yourself into that in order for it to actually affect you on a physical moment-to-moment level, right? And unless you're like unless they're currently, like, herding people into FEMA camps or whatever, then you sitting there worrying about it and trying to find all the correct narratives to protect yourself, you're wasting your own life. Like, you might as well have lived your life, even if that is to come later on. You might as well have lived it while you weren't in that situation.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the fundamental reason why I just dropped the whole thing with that situation in Russia, and it was going into this political fight mode, and the thing is, Gary, when you are unaware, it's called the path of fool, isn't it? Like I'm so ignorant of the way evil works,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt I was being pulled into the politics and the mechanism of the way evil worked in that situation in Russia, and I just felt I don't want to know.
Right.
I don't want to know.
It is like it is. There is a certain way that you have to sort of play, I guess. If you're sucked into that realm, there are going to be requirements that are made on you, not necessarily spoken verbally, but you're gonna feel that you must act in a certain way to fit into that system, and it's gonna be draining on your life. Like it will literally drain all your life force out.
Totally. I felt if I went that way, I would have been, my life would have ended. I absolutely felt that way. Even if the threats were fake, and which I don't think they were, I felt my life was going into a dead end if I didn't leave.
Yep.
Totally. It's such a trap.
Yeah.
It's such a trap.
Yeah. And you're actually giving them permission. Like the way I understand this life to work is it's on energetic consent, right? So like if you literally go to a facility that has players and rule sets, like even if it's politicians, businessmen, whatever, and you're going there as, Ihor, whatever your official name is, and you're addressing some complaint, like you were going inside of that game where all the rules are set up, and you have to play by the rules, otherwise they get the right basically to do what they, like life is life. It's violent, things happen, people die. Like it's not all fun and games and sitting on, like lily pods in the pond. It's the part of it that's dark is actually very dark.
Yeah.
That part's not a joke, but you still, as your own sovereign self, you get to choose if you want to enter in that game. You can always go into silence. Like I've had to do that in some situations where nothing that I said was helping me whatsoever, so I just wouldn't say anything.
And that's precisely what I did. I went into silence.
Mm-hmm.
I was on my way to Holland, and after a certain message, I just went into silence.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean.
Yeah. And what you're doing by going into silence is you're like giving the universe permission to kind of settle down with regards to the stuff that you've been through, because it does settle down. Like the external to you, unless you're directly interacting with it, it has its own ebb and flow, like including all the people and the movements of the trees and all of that as well, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
you're always free to be able to go to that if you want or need to.
You said you're always free. Sorry, I didn't hear that, Gary.
You're always free to go to that space, like that place where you're not getting involved in this mental tricks and traps system, and you're just being silent, because the universe is not run by us directly. It does its own thing. Like if you sit and meditate, you watch the thing doing what it does, and it doesn't require input from you. You can, but you don't have to.
True. And I saw that flow. I saw that flow for 8 months, because my situation there in Holland was actually very secure, because the government was providing accommodation and small but sufficient amount of money per week, and they're very good. Dutch are very good. Gary will be pleased to know. and I had, I was very protected, and I had a chance. I had no work permit, so I couldn't work, and so I could just, be,
Mm-hmm.
and those 60 euros a week for everyday expenses, for food and whatever, it was an infinite wealth, because I was free from this, need to go into the matrix and interact and, and just, fight and
Yeah.
I could just be,
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to Holland and to Dutch people.
Yeah.
And
we all need a little rest from the matrix scurrying around, It's always there for you. Like Ihor, like if you need to go back and like fight that monster again, it'll be there for you. Like it'll be ready, and you can have a tussle and whatnot. But if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. So you're in Spain for how long do you think?
I reckon it could be up to another 2 months maximum, maybe a month and a half, or possibly even just 1 month, because I want to stop the asylum procedure and go to South Africa, possibly. That's how I feel. That's what I feel I will do. Gary, there, the picture is frozen.
The internet had a... Can you hear me still?
I think you're back now.
Yeah, it said unstable connection for a moment.
Right.
I think it's back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. So is there anything else going on in your life aside from just kind of moving around?
Basically, I'm kind of trying to, because obviously we have to earn a living.
Mm-hmm.
We have to earn some money to live. I mean, we have to pay to live here.
Mm-hmm. Pay to play.
And so basically, I'm trying to promote my translation page, and just trying to because I translate to earn money.
Yeah.
So Russian lessons. So that's what I'm doing, trying to refresh the old contacts with the clients and get new ones. So if you hear of someone who wants translation or Russian classes, I'm here.
I would look into. There are companies that you can get in with the company, and then you'll basically tutor students who are trying to learn a certain language. Like I know China pays a decent amount to Americans who are willing to tutor their Chinese students who are trying to learn English. So I'm quite certain you could find the same thing with someone trying to learn Russian, to where you could work, from home rather than meeting somebody in person. I would look into that if I were you.
So you mean like language training companies?
Yeah.
Right. All right. Yes. Yeah, that's another idea. Yeah, there are so many ideas, so many ways.
Yeah.
There are so many ways to do a certain thing. Said grandma wiping the table with a cat.
Right.
It's a Finnish saying. I wrote.
There are many ways. Usually we get overwhelmed by the actual amount of possibilities, so we go for the ones that we kind of know, and the ones we know usually are bad for us. So we just kind of like circle around same drain all day.
And the thing is, sometimes you're just blind to the most obvious things. Why?
Yeah.
Just. And then when you see it, you question how is it? You didn't see it. It was there, as you know.
I do that with physical objects. It'll be literally like right here, and I can't see it.
You seriously do?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Right.
We're at about an hour, Ihor. I think it's somewhere around an hour. So I think we can. Huh?
It's been good to talk to you, Gary.
Yeah, it's fun. If you know anybody who you would like me to have on the show, feel free to connect me with whoever you'd like. Because I'm trying to get 30 people.
I will.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And I'll think about it tonight. So promise.
Okay. Well, you look good. You look happy. So I'm glad you kind of weathered whatever storm that was.
Thank you, Gary. And you look so much younger without beard. Beard suits you, but without beard, you look much younger.
I lose about 10 years when I cut the beard off.
Yeah, that's right. But beard or no beard, it's good. Both ways are good.
Thank you for coming on, Ihor. It was really fun connecting with you again.
Thank you for the invitation, Gary. It's been really good to talk to you.
Yep.
And good day to you. We have such a huge time difference, 8 hours. So
yeah,
good day.
We're midday. It's like mid-afternoon right now. Late morning. Thank you, Ihor. Good day to you.
All the best, Gary.
All right.
See you. Speak soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Have a good one.
You too.